On the Talkback Show, on the radio, or whatever audiovisual device you choose to use. Welcome to the GBC podcast, where we talk about the Packers and our hometown of Green Bay. We are the official podcast of the Lot 1 tailgate party, which is at Lambeau Field every home game. This is episode 95, created December 16th, 2024. I'm John. I'm in Appleton, Wisconsin. Along with me, Jeff in Minnesota and Neil on the East Coast. Say hello, gentlemen, and tell us what you're drinking.
In view of our upcoming opponent, I am having the Abita Brewing Company Purple Haze, Abita being from just across Lake Pontchartrain from New Orleans and one of the oldest craft breweries in the country.
Good evening, everyone. Tonight, in the spirit of the season, I'm having Prairie Artisan Ales Christmas Bomb Imperial Stout.
All right, and I had some fresh limes, which usually means a tequila drink, but tonight I actually made a vodka gimlet and with fresh squeezed limes. Jeff, if you play your cards right, you could freshly squeeze my limes later as well. All right, you can find us on YouTube and Twitter at Green Bay Chat and Facebook at the GBC Podcast, Green Bay Chat. Just the audio is available on Apple Podcasts as well as Spotify by searching for Green Bay Chat. What are we talking about this week? Well, it was week 15 in Seattle. We've got a big Monday night football matchup in Green Bay coming up as the New Orleans Saints come to town. Of course, we're going to talk tailgating, but we're going to do that with our guest tonight. We are bringing to you our friend Sam in Milwaukee, someone we have gotten to know through the power of social media that we have talked about a lot recently. But Sam, say hello and tell us what you're drinking.
Hello, I'm Sam. I'm drinking a hazy beer hug from Goose Island, and I know nothing else about it.
That's fair, as long as it tastes
delicious.
good, right?
Yes. Yeah. I wasn't aware that we researched what we drink. I just grabbed it out of the fridge.
you take John's approach, where Jeff and I are chattier. So
they put a lot more thought into this stuff than I do. Yeah. Well, thanks for joining us, Sam. The reason that we have Sam on the program, as we mentioned, she's kind of part of this vast network of Packer fans that are all interconnected using various social media, whether it's Twitter, and yes, we still call it Twitter, now Blue Sky, Instagram, Facebook, and everything else that we use out there. And it's one of those things where I guess it's a nice way to get to know people, right, Sam?
Yes, absolutely.
And that's kind of your history. So how did you get connected with these crazy people?
It was just on Twitter. You find Packer fans and then you start following Packer fans and then you start commenting on each other's posts and then you're like, hey, you're cool. Where do you live? Like, are you going to a game? And then I know like Kate on Twitter and Jamie Cheesebutt, who used to be on Twitter, they organize like a huge Twitter tailgate. Okay. And that's how I met probably most of the people that, I still talk to today.
One of those situations where you threw caution to the wind and you said, yes, I'll blindly go to Green Bay and meet a bunch of people in person.
Yep. And since then, it's been a thing that we say, like, meet your Twitter friends.
Yeah.
Meet them. Because, I have one of my best friends who lives in Green Bay, Jess. We've been so tight for 3 years now, and I would have never gotten the chance to cross paths with her if it wasn't for Twitter.
But you're a good follower of podcasts.
Mm-hmm. I do. I work on the road and I can listen to music or whatever. I can listen to whatever I want at work all day. So that helps.
All right. Do you feel like that's helped you increase your football knowledge, your football smarts?
Yeah, absolutely. Even just following certain people who are into the stats, like, well, now I want to know the stats, so I know what you're talking about. I definitely follow it a lot closer now. And because if someone says, hey, you want to be on my podcast after this game, I can know that when I've watched the game, I have points in my head and not just like, that was great. We won.
You're from the Milwaukee area. You grew up in the Milwaukee area.
Yep.
You've been a Packer fan your whole life?
Yep. Since birth, my parents are all Wisconsin sports fans. So that's all I know.
Without saying your age, could you have seen a Packer game at County Stadium?
No. I don't think so.
Okay. But you've been to Green Bay for a few games.
Yes. My record is 12-1-1, I think now.
All right.
Nice.
Got to hook her up with some season tickets, I think.
I know. Yep.
Tell us about that first experience at Lambeau Field.
That was in 2014, playoff against the 49ers. We lost horribly, but I don't remember much of the game. I just remember having so much fun. freezing my ass off, but having so much fun. And I was like, oh, we lost, but this was awesome. This was like the best. And I've been to, other sporting events, but that was like otherworldly.
Sort of got you hooked then?
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
To coin a phrase, right? You don't forget your first time.
Absolutely. You don't.
And Neil, we were at that game. We were up on the roof for that one.
Yeah, we were frozen is what it was. That was your beer turns to slush pretty much immediately, even in a big plastic cup game.
Now, Sam, you talked about that for the atmosphere of Lambeau Field, that first game. Did you do tailgating that time around?
I think there was like a big tent that we went into. There was like a Packer Elvis. It was really such a blur that I don't remember specifics. I actually found a couple pictures with me and my mom, because it was me, my mom, and my stepdad at the time we went. I actually just found pictures from that night where it was.
And then your second game was that infamous tie against the Minnesota Vikings?
Yep, in 2018. That game, my dad was the salute to service person. So I had wrote in and got him selected, and it was actually like a day before his birthday. Was it?
Wow.
On the 18th? Yeah, September 18th, 2018 or something like that. So yeah, so we were on the field beforehand. We went out into the middle of the field and they kind of like introduced him on the, you guys have seen it.
Yeah.
So so I did that for him. He's 33 years in the Army, or was 33 years.
Okay, that was my next question.
Yep.
So you didn't grow up on military bases then or anything like that? You weren't?
No, he was active when we were like really, really young, and then he went to the reserves.
Gotcha. Okay. Yeah. That's an exciting honor to have that salute to service. That's great. You wrote in for him and you guys went up. Did you have a special place to sit or what other thing? What kind of behind the scenes stuff did you get in that game?
Yes, they said, well, we'll kind of open up at 9 if you want to be standing out there at 9 for a noon game. And we're like, how early can you get us out there? That's exactly when we want to go. So we went in like a different way, kind of like where they like load the trucks, I guess. And then my dad changed into his uniform, and then we went out there. It was pretty hot that day, but then we just got to stand there and watch everything. I think that was a game that Giannis was at. We met Giannis. It was phenomenal. And then we were able to stand in the end zone when they did the kickoff. As soon as they caught the ball, then we had to leave the field. But that was pretty cool to see everyone running at you, being in the end zone for the kickoff. Yeah, that was pretty cool. And then I think we were on the 50-yard line, maybe up in the second section, but front row. Yeah, beautiful. Beautiful.
It sounds like a great day altogether. I hope you have a lot more pictures of that game than you do the
yes, yes, I do. And videos. Yeah. Yeah.
Well, congratulations and salute to your dad as well. Thank you for his service.
Yep.
Outside of that, then things get kind of weird. We have our COVID year, but it's this social media that really starts to make things more prolific, and you get involved with a group of people. And now, as of 2021, you've been coming up pretty regularly.
Yeah. All the 12 games that we won have been since 2021. Which I actually went to a wild amount of games in 2021. I think it was like 5 or 6 of them, which to go from 2 games ever to coming that often, it's crazy. Yep. It's a beautiful opportunity because not a lot of people get that.
And we certainly want to talk to you about tailgating, because tailgating is a culture, and we'll get to that in a bit when we get to the Monday night game. But let's also talk about how well Packer fans travel. Now, have you been to a Packer game on the road?
Yes, the last game of the 2021 season at Detroit, I was there, which was pretty good. It was kind of like that throwaway game, but I sat next to some Lions season ticket holders, and they were awesome to talk to. It was mostly nice, even wearing your Packers gear. They won the game, so they were like, yeah. I was like, this is your Super Bowl, goodbye. Like, I don't even think Rodgers played much, anyone. So, but otherwise, that's the only Packer game. I've been to a game at the Seahawks stadium against the Seahawks and Rams. So those are the only 3 games I went to.
Well, that's a good transition to where we want to talk about. We want to talk about Seattle now. Were you in the new Seattle stadium? You weren't in the old Kingdome, right? Yeah.
Nope. This was 2020.
Yeah.
Stop trying to make me older than I am.
Come on, John. Jeez.
Now, you were there for you said a Seahawks-Rams game.
Yeah.
Describe the Seahawks fans in that game, what that 12th man is like.
It wasn't as impressive as I thought it was going to be.
Okay.
I think yesterday I was talking to someone like, yeah, they may be loud, but we have like more people in our stadium to make it louder. So when I was there, I was like, it's loud, but I've experienced louder,
Okay.
which is
And
I think we have like 11,000 more seats than that
okay.
stadium, which helps.
And the seats at Lambeau are much closer together
Yeah,
because you're on
you
the
don't
middle
have
benches.
those. Yeah, and you don't have those like cutouts by
Plus,
the Hawks nest.
isn't the one end pretty open? Doesn't it open up to the
Yeah, I
bay,
think that's
I think?
like the Hawks nest or whatever. It's just like that triangle. That's where we sat. So maybe
Okay.
it's because we sat there and there was open sides on the side of us, but
Yeah.
I didn't go like, wow, this is so loud.
But now this weekend in Seattle, Packer fans who travel very well, we found out
Yeah.
from our friend Dave, who lives in the Seattle area, and he went to the game as well. Packer fans took over in Seattle. And as we talk about the game, Green Bay wins this game, but
Yeah.
it was noticeable. Jeff,
Yes.
you mentioned it a few times as well. Very noticeable on television.
Yeah, to have the announcers call it out. I mean, occasionally they'll do that, but it was audible.
It was loud early as well. I mean, it's one thing when you have a game where we dominate and you hear it as the game goes on, but it was in the first quarter before we'd really even done anything, and you had starting to hear those "Go Pack Go" in the stands. And for that to happen in the home of the 12th, the so-called 12th man, because again, that implies that no other stadium has this home field advantage. For that to happen in Seattle was glorious.
Now, Sam,
And
as you know, with the show, Neil's going to just like rattle off a bunch of statistics and get boring
Mhm.
here. But before he does that, give us your opinion of the game. How enjoyable was it watching this game
I
on
think
TV?
it was very enjoyable. I think we were aggressive besides like the fourth down. I thought they should have went for it twice out of the however many times, but I thought they looked really good and they were kind of all clicking and the defense looked great. I don't know. I enjoyed it and I didn't like that it came to that point where like, oh shit, are we gonna lose this? Because I didn't feel that way in the beginning. I felt
Right.
really good. And then it was that, oh fuck. Like now we
That's
gotta take it down to the wire again.
right. There's that sleepwalking point in the third quarter that I think we kind of experienced, and yeah, I think we definitely had some frustration on that. Neil, numbers overall though in this game ended up pretty good, right?
Overall, yes. And especially if you look at those first half numbers for the Packers. The Packers had 235 yards of offense in that first half, balanced 142 passing to 93 rushing. And that was, as much as anything, what was impressive to start the game. It was just Jacobs, pound it down. Love maybe runs once and score. 10 of the first 11 plays to Josh Jacobs, we score a touchdown.
It was a great strategy. And, we always talk about how much we enjoy the commitment to the run, but what happened? Why does it not work in the second half? Are teams adjusting to us just that much? Why are they not preparing for this?
I don't know, but to jump out like that, that's exactly what was needed because it got, as Neil alluded to, it got the Packer fans fired up, and a fast start was absolutely needed, as we saw later on. But what happened then, Neil?
Well, I mean, we scored again, right? And in between, we stopped them on essentially a 3-and-out that with a big sack by Edger and Cooper on third down on their first drive. It's like that was the setting the tone for the evening. Long drive for us, short drive for them with a sack. Long drive for us, touchdown, 14-0. This game's going to be easy, right?
We're going to see how many Neil throwing the Edger and Cooper with a big sack in there. We'll see how many double entendres we can get in this podcast. All right, the official count has started. But yeah, it's one of those things where, again, like I said, I like the commitment to the run, especially when it happens early. We saw this earlier in the season, obviously when Jordan Love was out in the Indianapolis game, and then our game in Tennessee. That commitment to it, and to get Josh Jacobs really involved, he just has quietly put up some impressive numbers all season long as well.
He's third in the NFL in rushing yards at 1,147 rushing yards and second in the NFL in rushing touchdowns. This is a Packers running back. The Packers are a passing team. That's not how the Packers play.
Right. And we saw the statistic a couple of times on the broadcast last night that we haven't had a running back like this since Amon Green. But he also adds that added factor. He is also the receiving running back. It's not like we have a separate third down running back like they tried to make Brandon Jackson many years ago. This is Josh Jacobs all the time.
Josh Jacobs had 84 yards in the first quarter, 46 rushing, 38 receiving. 84 yards for Josh Jacobs in quarter one alone.
So we jump out to a fast start, and for one of the few times this year, the defense was mirroring the offense. They were both clicking.
Yeah, Sammy, you even mentioned it just a moment ago. I mean, you really liked how this defense was fired up. They played pretty strong in this game.
I had wanted them to play like we played against the Titans for so long. Like when we can just get after the quarterback and really put that pressure on, I think we're the most successful because then you rattle them and then McKinney gets more interceptions or, Valentine.
I was very much rooting for that number 8 for X in the game, but Valentine gets the interception, though.
But going back to how we were able to stop them, like one of the things that we had against Detroit and a lot of other games is just not stopping the other team. And I said the first drive, we had the Cooper sack. Second drive, they move the ball downfield reasonably. They get to a 2nd and 1, and then we push them back 1 yard on 2nd down, a sack by Gary on 3rd down, and we force a field goal. But they were at 2nd and 1 and did not convert from that. That was also setting the tone.
And that was the only time they were in the red zone the whole game. So that's where, again, our defense set the tone. And yes, they were playing well in the first half. I was kind of looking for some turnovers or whatever. It was back and forth. But I think I want to focus back on our offense. So we were 3 of 4 on 3rd downs in the first half, had 15 overall first downs, 31 plays. Like Neil said, 235 yards. We scored every single time we had the ball. I mean, almost a perfect half. There's a field goal in there, whatever. But it just felt like, okay, we're clicking. The defense is tracking on the sort of the back end to keep the score down as well. Where can we go from here? And it seemed like halftime, they just decided to take a nap.
Well, they took a nap a little bit before halftime, to be fair, because we got the ball after Valentine's interception, and this seemed like an opportunity to score again. We got the ball back with 2:54 left in the first half, and somehow had a 83-yard drive. We had 2:54 left. We had 2 timeouts, and somehow barely squeaked out a field goal at the end.
Neil, the good news about that, though, is Matt LaFleur has come out and he did take responsibility for the piss poor clock management there. We're up 14 at the time. You have the luxury that you can get away with that. But yes, it's something that I think I like it as a learning experience, being 14 points up rather than being a 14-point down learning experience.
I mean, I think the luxury was, before they had the long reception to Kraft, when we're deep, because Valentine took the ball out of the end zone. We're deep, and it's like, well, okay, well, maybe we have to punt the ball, and that was fine then. But once we got to the point that we were essentially at midfield, and we screwed around and took 30 seconds per play, we ended up essentially leaving a timeout on the board because we couldn't even use it. I mean, it was just preposterous as far as going through that sequence. And we got the field goal, and those 4 points that Matt LaFleur left on the board thankfully didn't hurt us. But that drive was actually our longest drive of the game, is an 83-yard drive.
But the mismanagement of the clock. I mean, just letting the time tick off. Tick, 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 tick. And what are they doing? And it was a little demoralizing. I mean, to watch us, like, do they kind of know what they're doing here? Everything had been clicking. Everything was thinking, okay, we would go in and score here. But you're right, Neil, they got the field goal, but it was so, like, just sort of left a weird taste in your mouth. Like, that was yucky.
I mean, I think, Sam has talked about how the second half, it felt like we were going to lose this game potentially. And I think we all felt that exact same thing. We never actually were any further than 10 points ahead, but it's because of that feeling of those lost opportunities that we had that it just felt like the game potentially was going to close in on us. And that, I think the failure essentially to get those other 4 points at the end of the first half is what put us all in this mood of being on the edge rather than as celebratory as we should have been at halftime by a very well played first half.
Exactly. I don't think there was any, I don't know. I mean, I don't know if you've seen my post, but I said go for it. Don't be a pussy. You're up 14-0. I mean, if you don't get 3 points, you don't get 3 points, but if you go for it, you're that much far ahead because we should have never, we just don't be comfortable. We can never be comfortable because we see what happens.
That's the advice Matt LaFleur needs.
Yes. Don't
Yeah,
get comfortable.
Get him on the phone.
You need someone, right, to have that good positive reinforcement advice. We also need to get someone else on the headset that is watching the replays as well, because the
challenge.
The 0 for 6 challenges.
Yeah. Whoever that guy is, that guy needs to be fired. It's been terrible.
Yeah. Like phone a friend or just, get somebody else. Like
Find somebody on the couch. And
Yeah.
they'll tell you. Find someone on Packers Twitter or whatever.
Yeah, just don't. Well, and we joke about it, but that's a lost timeout then as well. And that's just, some of these have just been boneheaded or just downright head scratcher, moronic. Like, what the fuck was he thinking? That's probably more accurate than all of them. Just like, don't do it, don't do it, don't do it. Oh shit, he threw the red flag. So yes, 0 for 6. I mean, I guess the only way to go is up from there, but so he's gonna win one sooner or later, right? Shouldn't he?
And this play in the second half is kind of indicative. We talked about it a moment ago. They were sleepwalking in the second half. This third quarter, Neil, I know you've got third quarter stats that you want to talk about because you're shaking your head. How bad was that third quarter in comparison to the rest of the game?
Let's just look at our next 5 drives. Our next 5 drives, 4 of them were 3 plays or fewer. And that was just incredibly frustrating after a first half in which we scored every single drive to not be able to move the ball. And we started okay by stopping them on their first drive. We go 3 and out, and that really set the tone initially. And then on top of it, we started to have Daniel Whelan start to be somebody who was hurting us when Daniel Whelan has been, he was an MVP for several games earlier in the season. And all of a sudden we're giving them the ball at midfield. And that was leading to what started to cause a lot more consternation. But in the third quarter overall, we had 37 total yards. We had 235 in the first half. We only had 37 yards in the third quarter, and we had 0 rushing yards. Jacobs, 4 rushes for -5 in the third quarter.
So what happened? I mean, it just like the teams didn't change.
Well,
we're still playing the Seahawks.
Into that, like I said, it's that halftime adjustments, but you would think that teams would start out playing against the Packer run better at the start of the game. And maybe it's that they don't want to believe that the Packers are committed to the run. But when they see it happen with such a great first half that Jacobs had, for him to come out and be -5 in the third quarter, it's scary almost how that offensive line was in control in the first half and could not get Jacobs any room to run in the third quarter.
I mean, this has been a recurring theme, though, as far as the Packers offense and Jacobs in second halves. And is this a situation that we need to be rotating more to make sure that Jacobs is more fresh, but also rotating our plays more? Because there's been absolutely a predictability. I went through and there were like 5 or 6 drives where beyond the first one where we had 2 consecutive plays to Jacobs, and that ended up working like one time out of all of those things together. And Brooks had 1 rush for 6 yards in the first quarter. Wilson had 1 rush in the first quarter and then 2 in garbage time. But fundamentally, it was just Jacobs if we're going to run. And maybe we're just, we're not cleaning things up as far as giving possibilities to other players.
Well, Neil, the subtlety of your statement is that in that third quarter or those 4 drives, 3 plays or less. One of those drives has the Jacobs fumble in it as well, which is, it's only the second time he's fumbled all season, but you could just tell in that whole play something was off. He literally tripped over nothing, or I don't know if he tripped or he was off balance, but it put him out of position to protect the ball, and that's where it got knocked out.
And then they immediately scored to make it a 10-point game, and this goes right to the full of Sam's oh shit thought that all of us had.
And I know we don't do a lot of the X's and O's here, but that touchdown that Seattle did have on that run is quite impressive when you looked at the blocking on it, because they weren't in the red zone. As Jeff said earlier, their one red zone appearance came earlier in the game. They're not in the red zone, and they run a nice sweep to the right where you've got guards pulling, And this was the quintessential Packers sweep for a team that their offensive line couldn't put anything together all game. They gave up 7 sacks on the game. They just weren't in control of anything. And this one play was pure perfection for the Seahawks.
Well, mercifully, it was only their only touchdown. And I maybe kind of a wake-up call for the Packers at this point. I know, it's deja vu all over again for us sitting on the couch. And
what do you mean a wake-up call? We had a 3-and-out after that touchdown, and then they did a short drive, and then there was the Reed muff. I mean, it was bad, yeah. And the special teams, the asshats, got involved at that point too.
We were so excited that we hadn't been talking about the asshats, and now it's like they had to make their presence known. Now, Brandon McManus still has a good game, but Daniel Whelan, as you mentioned, he's got 4 punts on the game, one of them for 51 yards, or the other 3, I should say, barely hitting 40 yards.
It was weird, and it wasn't like it was 20 degrees out or anything like that. So was he just mishitting it? Was it just a bad game? Fortunately, though, even though giving up that field position didn't really hurt us, because let's give the defense really their due here. I mean, in the first half, Seattle had 115 total yards. In the second half, they had 93. I mean, come on. That's pretty good. 208 total yards in a game. And that's on 56 plays. So, John, I know you're doing the math in your head. That would be 3.7 yards per play. But still, I mean, just they really, and like Sam said, suddenly the sack machine shows up.
I like the sack machine.
Right. Well, you've got 7 sacks on the game. You knock a quarterback out of the game. You've got 2 interceptions. The 2 interceptions make us +1 on the game, which is nice because we had the lost fumble. But this is that defense that we've been promised, right? I mean, they're clicking on all cylinders. Everybody had a good game on Sunday.
The Seahawks overall passing numbers, 20 for 33 for 128 net yards, 173 minus all those 45 sack yards. That means that they had 128 yards passing on 40 dropbacks for 3.2 yards per dropback for the passing game of Seattle. The Seattle passing game is what we were told going into the game is what we needed to be afraid of. And Jackson Smith-Njigba certainly had a good game, but he was the only person who had a good game for that team.
Looking at the defensive stats, they packed the stat. So you had 57 total plays. There were 7 sacks, 10 tackles for loss, 6 passes defense. Now, we've gone a couple games where there's no passes defensed, and then 12 quarterback hits.
Plus the 2 interceptions.
Yeah. So, I mean, everybody was involved, but I think certainly this maybe the breakout game here, we sort of had seen it, and he was back, Edgerrin Cooper. Yeah. 7 tackles, 6 solo, 1 sack, 2 tackles for loss, 2 pass defense, and 2 quarterback hits. He had a pretty good night.
Yeah, we obviously missed him against the Lions, and we saw just how much we missed him in that game against the Lions. What an incredible game. Edgerrin Cooper was involved in the first Packers tackle of the game, tackling for a loss of 5 yards, essentially, on the opening kickoff, and a tackle for loss on the Seahawks' last play of the game. He bookended that game that was certainly a signature game so far in his career.
And the other player that had a great game, Neil, JJ Enagbari, or Kingsley Enagbari. He calls himself JJ, so I'll call him JJ as well. 2 sacks, 3 tackles for a loss, and he just really dominated in this game. And this is a situation where we talked about Preston Smith leaving, and we were hoping this meant Lucas Van Ness would start to blossom. But really, Enagbari and Rashawn Gary, for that matter as well, these guys are really showing themselves to be great bookends on that defensive line.
And also we saw the rotation that we talked about at the beginning of the year. So in addition to Cooper, to Enagbari, Gary with a sack, Cox, Wyatt, and KGB contributing to those 7 sacks. This wasn't D-backs coming in and doing a safety blitz or anything, but this was all essentially the front 7 that was doing the work.
And this is what we were promised with the Jeff Hafley defense. And
well, it's also what we needed in this game. You've got to start everything up front. If you have a front 7 that can dominate the way they did on Sunday, we could play defensive backfield. That's the thing. Your defensive backs are out there doing a great job. We were worried about Jair not being in there. We were worried about the injuries to Bullard and Williams. We're always worried about Eric Stokes for that matter. But it just, when everything starts up front and they play strong and they can put pressure on the quarterback, it makes everybody else's job easier.
What do you think was the difference in Seattle, though? I mean, the defense is on the road. This is a pretty decent offensive line. They're not terrible. So, what was the catalyst here? This is really the first quality game from the front seven that we've seen all year, unfortunately.
Well, you won't like my theory because you didn't like it last week.
Oh,
either.
No, you're not going to go there again, are you?
John, by the way,
finally...
just before we get to your theory, I'll note that if we had won last week, we would be tied with Detroit right now.
That's true. It's a situation where I think that Green Bay is slowly introducing new facets of their strategy, of their game plan as each week goes on. They have held a lot of cards to the vest, and we saw some hit the table on Sunday. You've got New Orleans coming into town, but I think that a lot more of these cards are going to come out when we go to Minnesota in 2 weeks.
I don't know, Sam. Do you think he's full of it?
I mean, I don't know. I don't have any opinions on that. I have no idea what's different because there's been the glimpse of good, then them doing nothing, essentially. I don't know what they're doing.
Do you think so? John is positing that they're doing nothing on purpose,
right?
To a certain extent. Now, I
think John somehow managed to soften his opinion because I think it is the learning process, and they are really trying to figure out how to get this defense and get all of the parts working together and actually knowing where everyone needs to be. And that's the whole reason why we traded Preston Smith away, is that he doesn't really fit this 4-3 defense, and the personnel all needed to adjust. So I think that we don't need to go to a conspiracy theory like John has in order to recognize that it is taking time for the Jeff Hafley defense. Now, to be fair, we were playing against their backup quarterback as well in the fourth quarter, and that certainly is going to help pad your stats. And specifically, Howell in that fourth quarter, 4 of 12 for 26 yards and sacked twice. This was somebody who was completely overwhelmed, and you can see why Washington was ready to move on.
I mean, I get what you're saying about that they're adding new things later on in the season as the guys get together. I could see that, but not purposefully.
Not
withholding.
Not like they were trying to tank, but like I said, in the Detroit game, I felt they were going to come out pretty vanilla. When you compare the Detroit game to the Seattle game, one of those games had a very vanilla strategy and game plan to it, and the other one was very dynamic.
Yeah.
Big picture of the Seattle game, Sam, what was your favorite play of the game?
Probably that crazy Dobbs catch. Well, the Dobbs catch and then him catching and running in like a bulldozer. Both of them.
Both of those touchdowns were incredible.
Yeah, especially coming back from his head injury, and he's got that big Guardians cap, and he looks kind of funny. Looks a little goofy. Yeah, definitely.
But it worked. I mean, the second one is the one that's getting all of the attention because Love throws this to the middle of the back of the end zone, and Dobbs just makes his way there and just has this beautiful catch. To me, the better pass, the more impressive pass was the one where he just slices the two defenders, and then you get Romeo Dobbs who catches the ball at the 4-yard line, and he was not going to be denied. He powered his way in the rest of the way.
Romeo Dobbs is a power receiver? Who'd have thunk it? I mean, do we need to be doing the tush push with Romeo Dobbs taking the ball from center?
Looks like it now. He went pretty far with those. There's 2 guys on him?
Yeah.
Trying to pull him down? Yeah.
Yeah, you know what? If we're talking the Packer push or whatever, give it to Tucker. I want to see him. He had a fairly quiet game, 2 catches, but important, and the blocking and things like that. I mean, there was no standout receiver. I mean, it was nice to see that Reed had 5 catches on six targets, so he's kind of back. It was more possession,
and a couple of Jeff sweeps out there.
There were a couple Jeff sweeps. So Sam, the dreaded jet sweep, that I just despise the play in general. So John is now called
the Jeff sweep. Yep,
it's the Jeff
just to sort of
but he gets a 12-yarder and a 13-yarder. Jeff, you can't deny this play.
They worked yesterday,
and they were critical because that was when Jacobs was not moving the ball as well in the second half.
Don't forget the fake Jeff sweep in the first half as well.
Yes, that was. Yeah, there was a little bit of everything. So again, maybe not as vanilla. Like you said, we're seeing the sweep, but it was nice to see Love with the off schedule plays, just chucking that thing. Every game that he's played, there's been a couple of those where it's just like, damn, that was impressive.
And then also the receivers making the impressive plays. In addition to Dobbs, Christian Watson with his pirouette catch on the side of the field. Wow.
Finally, I'm not sure if there were any drops last night. That was another thing. Sure-handed receivers. What a concept.
There's also two passing plays that end up with defensive pass interference, basically because of ball being underthrown a little bit, the receiver making the play to try to come back and really
making the play. Yes.
Getting tackled before the ball gets there. Is that ball intentionally being underthrown in those plays?
It doesn't matter. The receivers are adjusting to the ball, and they're finally getting the pass interference penalties. Instead of just trying to make some kind of circus catch, they're moving back through the defensive back. That's when they're getting the pass interference penalty. And I mean, both teams only had 5 penalties called, 5 accepted penalties last night. But the yardage, it was what killed Seattle, or what was the difference, was a pass interference yardage. I mean, oof.
Jackson Smith-Njigba had 83 yards receiving. You look at our receiver numbers, they're not as good. But if you add those DPIs, Watson and Dobbs were both over 80 yards as well.
My concern on it is these are deep passes. I'm concerned that Jordan Love does not have a deep downfield throw to him, especially considering we've got a fast guy like Christian Watson, who we need a nice deep downfield throw. Love has great short passes. He's got great precision. We've seen his ability to hit tight windows. But yeah, I'm concerned that those 2 deep passes that were short that drew the pass interference were not intentionally thrown.
I don't think he was set. And I think if he sets himself and wants to throw downfield, we've seen him throw some really, really deep, good balls. So that was just, he wasn't.
I'm sorry.
I'm glad she left first.
I tried so hard to keep it together. I tried so hard.
Thank you. Excellent. So where was I?
You were talking about being balls deep, Jeff, for Christ's sake.
I got nothing after that. I'm sorry.
All right. Final score 30-13. Neil, what other numbers you want to throw out there on this game?
Finally, a summary of Jordan Love's overall game. He started out hot, 12 of 13 for 142 yards in the first half, and finished 20 of 27, 229 yards, 2 touchdowns, no interceptions, 90.1 QBR, 124 traditional quarterback rating. That's everything you want from your quarterback.
And no sacks.
And no sacks. Game puts the Packers at 10-4 on the season. They are still holding tight in that number 6 seed in the playoffs with 3 games left to play. So for the Packers really to move up from that 6 seed, Minnesota's got to lose a couple of games here, ideally one of them against Green Bay. They also finished the season with Detroit. So is there a chance that Green Bay moves up to that 5 seed? There is. I think the goal, though, Jeff, we talked about it. How many games does Green Bay need to win? They need to win 1 more than Washington does and stay ahead of them. We don't want the 7 seed as this season winds down here. Next team coming into town, though, not a chance of getting to the playoffs. The New Orleans Saints with a 5-9 record, even with as paltry as the records are in the NFC South. Buccaneers leading that division at 8-6. But New Orleans, this is a team that really has become an afterthought. Unfortunately, I don't think that we saw this game as a worrisome game on the schedule, but does this become a trap game now, knowing that we have Minnesota the week after that, and we really need to hold this position or try to get moved up a spot in seeding?
I mean, New Orleans has had one of the weirdest seasons, right? They started out winning 47-10 their first week against Carolina and 44-19 over Dallas their second week. And people were talking about them being this unexpected juggernaut in the NFC, and they more or less have fallen apart since then. But it's a weird situation. And I think the biggest thing we've got going for us is that, well, David Carr is out, and it looks like Alvin Kamara is going to be out as well. And you take a weak offense and take away their best parts, and This is something that looks like it should be something straightforward. I think the question about it being a trap is we've got to rely on Matt LaFleur's record in December. He keeps his teams focused in December, and I don't think there's a great concern about that. The only injury-related thing that New Orleans has working in their favor is that Chris Olave might return this week, so there may be somebody who can damage our D-backs, but who's going to be throwing it to him? I mean, did you know who Jake Hayner was? Who was the expected starter?
Who's the other guy? Spencer
Rattler?
Rattler?
Spencer Rattler, a rookie from
Yeah.
South Carolina, and Jake Hayner, a 4th-round pick last year from Fresno State. They really love those Fresno State quarterbacks in New Orleans, apparently, because Derek Carr is also from Fresno State. But
Thanks, Neil.
yeah, I had to look up the history of both of these players because I didn't know jack shit about either of them.
And New Orleans, a team that you talk about those first couple of games, Neil, as well, right? The offense was a surprise in those games, but a team that has a good reputation of being a strong defensive unit as well. But even that has struggled a bit this season.
Looking at the team stats for both of these teams, on offense, Packers are 4th. New Orleans is 15th. New Orleans is basically middling at everything on offense. Essentially every single statistic on offense, they're right in the middle. Defense, they are 30th in the NFL in yards per game allowed at 377, 28th against the pass, 26th against the run. This is a team that definitely has significant limitations, and it is decidedly not their strength this year.
So let's see. December in Lambeau, you've got a warm weather dome team coming to play. You're right. I mean, everything.
Are you ready for the much too early weather forecast, Jeff?
Enlighten me, John.
All right.
Me.
On Monday in Green Bay, the forecast is cloudy with a daytime high of 32 degrees. The overnight low will get down to about 27 degrees. So expect, because this game is right after sunset, a 7:15 kickoff. So, my guess is it's easily going to be under freezing. It's going to be probably 30 degrees and dropping. I'm not sure what kind of wind or wind chill we're going to have, but it could be just in one of those nice, crisp, mild December nights for football in Green Bay.
No snow, no precipitation, John?
There is nothing on the horizon for us. There's a little bit of snow Thursday and Friday that may be on the ground when Monday rolls around, but I don't think it's going to even be anything that significant to worry about.
You want to know a random X factor in this game? Of course, we know the Packers don't allow any sacks on offense. We're 2nd in the NFL with only 16 on the year. We have now actually moved to 6th in the NFL after our performance against Seattle with 40 sacks for our defense. We're becoming a sack monster of a team, apparently, if you look at the numbers and compare them to everyone else.
Sack monster.
You're doing this on purpose. I can't keep it together.
He is. All right, Sam, we've got 2 home games left. New Orleans coming into town, Chicago coming into town as well. Of the games you've been to the last couple of years, is there a fan base, not a Green Bay fan base, but an opposing team fan base that has come in that you've been impressed with, that you've said, hey, these guys travel well as well?
I think the most fun that I've had, like after the game and like the night before even, was when LA comes in. They travel pretty well. I'm like, this is like a whole LA club up in here. There's always lots of people out partying. Maybe it's because they party more, but I think I've noticed more with the LA teams.
And what I'm getting at is I think New Orleans is a team where their fans travel well when the weather is nice.
Yeah.
When we see New Orleans earlier in the season, we definitely get a lot of black and gold. There's a lot of beads being flung around. They bring that Mardi Gras atmosphere with them. I have a feeling that New Orleans is probably, Jeff, because you alluded to, this is a dome team. This is a Southern team. They are not going to want to come to 30 degrees and cloudy on a Monday night, the day before Christmas Eve.
Yeah, I think the Christmas hurts. Obviously, the record hurts for them as well. We do have a Festivus game this year, so maybe we need to get all of our grievances out of the way now. But
a Festivus miracle on the way, hopefully, right, for Green Bay. But ticket prices, I think, are coming down on this one in the secondary market. Really, just like you said, with this holiday and winter, if you're looking to go to a game and you want to get out of the house for a little bit before the big stuff happens on Tuesday and Wednesday, I think this is a game to get to. I always like it when friends come home. I like it even more when they come and visit us at the tailgate party.
Looking forward to it, John. I will be back in town for my mother's birthday, going to the Packers game, and then we are flying out actually the next day as well. But I'm looking forward to a Monday night football game. There is always something different about Monday night. First of all, the crowds are very different for the Monday night games because of the fact that people have had the opportunity to be tailgating for much longer than they might for a noon game, but also just it's a much younger crowd and it makes for a very festive atmosphere at Lambeau.
All right, you're going to bring all your rowdy friends for Monday night then, Neil, too? Sam, I'm trying to get you fired up here. I'm trying to get you to feel some FOMO in this, and I want you to say, you know what? Fuck it, I'm going to Green Bay on Monday.
Okay, well, last time I did that for the 49ers game, I didn't make it to work on Monday. So I'm just trying to be a little bit of an adult.
Okay.
I don't want to be.
All right, but you will come for the Chicago game, correct?
Yes. Yep. I already have PTO. I don't have to work on Monday because I know I'm not responsible to be sober.
I know we always have a good season opener tailgate party. Is there a season closer tailgate party plan that you know of, or are you just going to try to find what's happening?
Nope. I'm just going where the wind takes me, which is going to take me to lot one.
What is your usual routine on a game weekend when you're coming up for the game?
So usually I'll go by my friend Jess's house, who lives just a couple blocks down. We'll get ready, we'll do some drinks, some shots, and then either we'll Lyft or Uber or we'll walk to like the Stadium View, D2 area. Depends who we're meeting. It's easier to meet outside at D2 with their DJ. I really like them, and you can definitely sneak all of your alcohol in there and drink it. You could not do that at Stadium View.
Hey, just out of curiosity, what's Jess's plan in April when the draft rolls around?
Well, she works from home, which is good, but
all right,
we'll see if she's got to entertain her kids or not, because I think they'll be off of school, right? Like the kids in the schools, they're starting early.
Yeah,
I think they're starting early so that they're off, but I'll be there. So
all right,
that's all that matters.
We're going to be vagabonds those couple of days. We're trying to find good quarters for the on the west side of town. And Neil thinks that it's going to be pretty easy getting across the bridges.
I'm not concerned, but I want to go back to game day weekends. And you mentioned something earlier that John and I very much appreciate, which is going out to the Stadium District and going out in Green Bay on Saturday night before the games.
Yes.
And tell us about what the scene has been recently, and have you seen the scene getting better, or how has the scene evolved over the last few years on the night before games?
Admittedly, I haven't gone out the night before this season. I'm usually driving up after work, so I usually get in pretty late. And with the noon games, I really like my sleep, and I feel really old saying that. But it has been super fun. It's been almost. Sometimes it's busier than the game night, and then sometimes it's not busy at all. But then game day, I'm guessing that's more local games where people don't have to fly in. So that's probably why it's crazier. But you got the DJ, you got inside, outside. It's packed.
Yeah, and a lot of it's reliant on where you can stay and how long you're in town. I know the hotels require 2-night stays and things like that. A lot of people coming into town for the first time, they stay close to the stadium, which is fine, right? There's a lot to see there. Now that winter is upon us, maybe the Aaron Sledding Hill will be going. There might be ice skating over there in Titletown, but just kind of doing the stadium tours or the pro shop, things like that. It's great that there's a lot to do there. Now, once you get to know your way around Green Bay, we always encourage people to cross the river, go to the east side, go downtown. There's a lot of really good local bars throughout town that aren't specific to the stadium, but I feel that we have a good Packer crowd presence in just about every bar, no matter where you go in town.
And the drinks are cheaper.
And the drinks are cheaper. That's important, right?
Yes.
Uber is pretty cheap, right, Neil?
Well, as long as you're not trying to go immediately after a game, sure.
As long as you're avoiding surge pricing, yeah. And as far as the Lot 1 tailgate party, Sam, you mentioned it. We appreciate you coming by. If you want to help us pour some shots on the shot ski, we'll always let you jump in and help with that as well.
As long as I'm coordinated enough and haven't had too many drinks.
what we'll ask you to do and ask our other fans again, the Packer Fan Hall of Fame, our friend Scott, who puts together the Lot 1 tailgate party, has been nominated for the Packer Fan Hall of Fame. We'll find out soon enough if he is on the slate. And if so, voting begins on January 1st. We'll definitely let everybody know. But let's spread the word on that we need Scott in the Packer Fan Hall of Fame.
Just to piggyback off that, the NFL Fan of the Year, Dave Lucero, get people out voting for him because he's good people and does a lot for the Packer fans of Southern California.
Southern California fans getting a lot of love from Packers fans. I know a lot of fans from Southern California went up to Seattle and were contributing to the atmosphere in Seattle this week.
All right, so best of luck to Dave as well. Get out there and vote for him as NFL Fan of the Year as well. But the game coming up, it's go time, guys. I think we all talked about this as being a Packer victory. Jeff, Neil, are you sticking with that prediction for Monday night?
Absolutely. I was concerned after the Detroit loss about how the Packers would react. They came out very strong, physical, and definitely were much better coached last night as well. Except, just some weird plays. But by and large, the team was ready to play. They looked good. Things got a little funky, but ultimately they won in Seattle. Big stepping stone. So now they get to come back home for Christmas. They get, as we mentioned, a dome Southern team that's really had some injury issues, had some just personnel issues, just the whole works. Should this be an easy victory? It should be a statement victory. I don't know how vanilla they're going to be, John, but I think their vanilla might be good enough in this case. Anyway, I'm looking for a big statement win on Monday night, national game, and a Merry Christmas to all in Packerland. Go Pack, go.
Would you consider that like French vanilla then? If it's not just vanilla.
Because it's
a little extra.
Well played.
Little
Nice.
extra spice.
New Orleans has been a very strange team this year, and you look at their most recent game, they only lost by 1 point to Washington, the team that we are fighting with for the 6 or 7 seed in the wild card. And you say, wow, maybe they're a better team than their record indicates. And I would argue that they are not a better team than their record indicates, because the week before that, they just barely beat the New York Giants by 3 points, scoring a grand total of 14 points. This is a team that's had problems scoring. This is a team that also lost to Carolina in the last month or so. This is a team that is without a quarterback, without its longtime running back. It's a team that is going to have the disadvantage of the elements, the disadvantage of traveling. I think they're, as much as anything, looking forward to next year when they can get all of their players back, maybe get some high draft picks. I don't think they're going to be as fully motivated. In contrast, Matt LaFleur is going to have his team ready to play because we are getting to the stretch run of the season. It is the time when Matt LaFleur is at his best in coaching his team. I expect to see the combination of those two in a really lovely to watch Packers victory. Go Pack, go.
All right, Sam, who's going to win Monday night?
Packers all day.
All right.
Go Pack, go.
You can find her on Blue Sky and Instagram. She is at Anchors Away Sam. She makes some great friendship bracelets as well for us. So we look forward to some more Green Bay Chat friendship bracelets or whatever else you put together. But
I will
Sam,
have them.
Thank you very much for being our guest. Thanks for coming on and talking about your Packer fandom.
Of course.
All right. We look forward to seeing you Bears weekend. We still don't know when the Bears game is going to be set up for. My guess is Sunday at noon, but we will see you regardless.
Yes, absolutely.
All right, terrific. I'm going to stick with my Packer victory prediction. Again, like I said, a concern there that this was going to become a trap game, but I think Green Bay playing strong. I think that they want to definitely put on a show on Monday Night Football, so I do expect a strong statement, Jeff, like you said as well, for Monday night for the Green Bay Packers. All right, if you're watching us on YouTube, please hit subscribe, leave us a comment. You can find the GBC podcast. We are at Green Bay Chat. That's all one word. We are on Twitter, Instagram, TikTok, Snapchat, Blue Sky, Apple Podcasts, and Spotify. On Facebook, modified a little bit, it's the GBC Podcast - Green Bay Chat. And you can follow us on any and all of those social media platforms. Follow Sam where she is as well at Anchors Away Sam. And may you fully appreciate the magnitude of your impending good fortune. Thanks for joining us.
Good night.
Good night.